Hello, welcome to the Jewish Sports Podcast. I am your host, Roy Kessel, and today we are very excited to have with us Adi Ciner. Adi is the program director of Maccabi Israel Sports Experience. And Adi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it.
We're excited to have you with us today and learn more about the work that you're doing with the Maccabi Israel Sports Experience. But first, we want to learn more about Adi, and I want to hear how you developed your passion for sports as a young boy.
Good question. I was a passionate sports player. I was an athlete, loved being outside, grew up playing basically every sport, weekends after school, missing class when I could. This is a normal Jewish American kid, obsessed with sports.
Grew up in Philadelphia. Tell people where you grew up.
Love the Phillies, love the Eagles, love the Sixers. Flyers a little bit more because my friends were Flyers fans, not because I was such a hockey fan myself, but right outside of Philadelphia.
And you talked about playing sports as a young boy. What were the sports that you played?
Mostly basketball. I was at an advantage, had an early growth sport, and was a little bit bigger than some of my peers, but I was athletic and loved anything. I was the kind of kid that if I didn't have a baseball glove, I'd use my yarmulke or I'd use a baseball hat, and I'd be able to make do and keep up, and was athletic enough to figure out most sports. Football and recess, nothing else, organized football, but my friend was Australian and his dad wanted to organize a soccer team, so played organized soccer for a bunch of years. Baseball at the JCC, but mostly basketball.
Mostly basketball. Okay. So which of those sports did you continue playing as you grew up?
Basketball was my bright spot. It hit certain peaks at different points, much younger than the athletes that I'm actually dealing with now. I did not have the same success as some of the players coming on our program. But I had a growth spurt, 7th, 8th grade, and that carried me through 10th grade, 11th grade. And my position slowly went from being a center to a forward to a wing. Spent some time at guard, and then now trying to find ways to help other people in sports because I had to hang up my own sneakers.
Very good. So how tall did you end up being as you
Not so tall. I could jump, and I give off a bigger presence than I actually am. About 5'8", which was tall in 7th grade.
5'8", okay.
But I give off a bigger presence. I can jump, I can play down low. I can still rough people up down low. I can grab a rebound when no one's expecting it. But I am not featuring myself as an athlete. This is a long time ago.
Yeah, it's fun. We all play a lot of sports growing up, and it's interesting to see how people develop and mature at different rates. And the kids that are big at one age don't sometimes stop growing and don't end up being the biggest kids. And the kids with the most skill at younger ages don't always end up being the ones that work the hardest and are dedicated to becoming better and improving all the way through. So it's always interesting to watch that progression. So when did you start
some of the childhood memories recently? I used to go to basketball camp with a local Philadelphia coach, Phil Martelli. So I got to reconnect with him, St. Joseph's University coach. I got to reconnect with him recently. I had won Camper of the Week that year, and they accidentally called me up by the wrong name. They called me up by the name of the jersey that I was wearing on the first day, which they assumed was my actual name, when they overheard other people calling me Howie for the Ryan Howard shirt. So I have this certificate that says Howard Ciner on it. I got to reconnect with Coach Martelli recently, 20 years later. And I'm not still playing, but I got to share with him the other areas of sports that I'm involved in.
Well, Coach Martelli had a great career there, as you referenced, one of the legendary coaches in college basketball. So that must have been an amazing experience. And to be Camper of the Week, that's a great honor.
You think of my early peak.
Well, always good to hit that peak, and then you can build from there. So that was your playing career, right? But when did you first consider sports as a career track for yourself in terms of as you progress through life?
So I am passionate about sports on a personal level. As a profession, I went into Jewish education. Like I am a Jewish educator at my core. And sports is something that, first of all, I'm passionate about, but also something that I've learned from a lot of role models along the way as like a major tool for being able to educate and connect to people in general. Like some of those everything from counselors in camp who I had the strongest affinity towards when they were able to connect with me in sports or be my division coach, and always found that they had the strongest impact on our bunk and my fellow campers. And I had a very special middle school coach whose name is Kenny Myers. He was a high school standout in Philadelphia, had workouts from the Sixers. At the time it was called the D League, not the G League. So we had D League offers to continue to play professionally in the US. And at a certain point, he transitioned from his playing career to seeing the end was relatively near for him. He wasn't going to be the replacement for Allen Iverson or the other ideas that they were throwing out to him at certain points. And he basically went all in on using that sports platform to help children. And he is currently still this like a PE teacher at an elementary school and middle school, but is by far the most effective educator in that institution. Someone not Jewish, someone who was like a major. He would show up at bar mitzvahs for kids throughout the school. Like at synagogue, you'd walk in. Somebody who was a major influence and really showed the power of sports as being able to educate and to connect to people.
Well, I think that's one of the great magics of sport, right? Is the ability to break down barriers, to connect people, to transform lives. And you talk about coaches, right? People, I think, that don't play sports underestimate and don't realize what an enormous impact those coaches have for young athletes. You're with those coaches so many hours in a given week, and that individual's capacity to help you learn not only about the sport, but about life and all kinds of lessons about overcoming adversity and resilience and mental toughness and fairness and equity and all kinds of things that get embedded through sports. And so, you talked about being a Jewish educator. So take us through that track of how you got on the track to be a Jewish educator.
Something I was always passionate about, always liked working with children, always liked, standing up for my identity and really living it. I had parents that wasn't always a given for. My mother grew up in a family where they changed their Jewish last name to sound less Jewish because there was all these forms of prejudice at the time in different parts of the US. And my father had some difficulties throughout his childhood. So he also had to, go through his own struggles. And they created this environment for me where I was able to really go all in and to be passionate about it and to not take it for granted. And this is something that I knew when I was in 8th grade that I wanted to give back and be a leader in the Jewish community. I was never going to be a major Talmud scholar. I was never going to be stuck in a classroom. But at each step of the way, whether that was a counselor at camp, after I finished high school, I volunteered to serve in the Army. I have asthma, which was an X on my profile when I was drafting to the IDF. A number of my peers who also had back issues or celiac or other things that would disqualify them from serving in combat, it became almost like a no-brainer. Like you're either in the Army as what you think of as being a typical soldier in the Army, or better to go use your that critical time of life when you're young and have every opportunity in front of you to go back to school or to go find a job or to go continue your career. someone told me about this opportunity to basically function like a chaplain in the army, and that was something that I ended up serving in. And that was also like this informal education role. I was on an army base. That was the dog unit in the IDF, completely, just trying to figure out how to make this experience meaningful for hundreds and hundreds of soldiers who are already doing meaningful things. I wasn't trying to tell them that their lives are meaningless and come, Judaism will fix it. Like these are people who are doing more incredible things than I was doing, but to try to support them and enhance that experience and tie it into Judaism as much as I could.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I think it ties things together. And you talked about the fact of the disqualifying factors for the IDF in terms of people that can't be in combat situations. And, I know that that's often a hard time for people going through that because, as you said, your peers are going in, and it's difficult to figuratively be left behind, even if you're still actively involved. So after you went through that time in the IDF, what was the next step for you?
I went back to the US. That was one of the conditions of my parents allowing me to serve in the Army, was that I would come back and get an American degree. I went to Yeshiva University in New York and then studied for a master's in education and rabbinical school. I don't wear the title of rabbi in my function as program director for Maccabi Sports, but technically I have that under my belt as well.
And where did you go to rabbinical school?
Also the affiliate school for Yeshiva University.
Got it. Okay. And so after you finished those degrees, then what was your next step from there?
I met my wife that summer working in a camp. She had moved to Israel with her parents when she was 12 years old, still in school. So she was Israeli, at least for my standards. We met in camp, we hit it off. And that year I was planning on transitioning to go to Israel anyways. That was always a passion of mine. And we got engaged at the end of that year, after my first year there. Finished rabbinical school in Israel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Continued with rabbinical school where they had an option to do that in Israel. And then started teaching. Was looking for ways to be involved in Jewish education, which isn't such a given in Israel when there's a number of Jewish educators and there's a public system and there's not the same opportunities as there might be in different parts of the US and the diaspora. Tried a lot of different things, taught in a number of different gap year institutions, worked in camps, ran a camp, came back to the US to run a day camp, and then this Maccabi opportunity presented itself.
So tell us more now about the Maccabi Israel Sports Experience. I think people are generally familiar with the Maccabi games in a big sense, right? But I know that this idea is quite a bit different from just the limited time frame for the games and the competitions there. So walk us through what the Maccabi Israel Sports Experience entails.
Yeah, so Maccabi is, as you mentioned, is a historic, amazing organization. They run this major Jewish sports event, the second largest international multi-sport event, period, behind the Olympics, not just for Jewish athletes. And they had this idea a number of years ago with their leadership, the CEO currently, Amir Gisin, who's amazing, Liron Cohen, who's become more involved. Liron Cohen is a female superstar basketball player who is Israel's all-time leading scorer for women's basketball, and since retiring has become more involved in Maccabi leadership. And they had this notion of Israel has a number of sports opportunities, and sometimes even greater opportunities than you'd find in the US or anywhere else in terms of playing professional sports and playing at a high level. And the notion was, instead of just bringing athletes for the Maccabi Games for a week, for 2 weeks, every couple of years, to give people a real substantive experience to come to Israel for a long period of time, and to do that through sports, and to showcase Israel as this, a real land of opportunity. Like this isn't, I can either follow my dream career and do so in the US going to a certain college, or I can sacrifice it all, go all in for Israel, Zionism, Judaism, and go spend time in Israel. Like here's an opportunity to do both and to use Israel as, as a real place of opportunity where you can enhance, follow your personal dreams while also, being part of this bigger thing for your people.
So that's very different, right, from the short-term duration for the games themselves. How do you select the individuals that are going to be involved with the Maccabi Israel Sports Experience?
It's a good question. We do a number of methods of recruiting. Like we we'll have some face-to-face interaction, but we rely heavily on game film, which is something that's used often in the recruiting process nowadays with advancements in technology. Yeah, meaning we are tracking as many Jewish top athletes as we can, focusing right now, hyper-focusing on basketball and expanding to soccer in the very near future, and trying to touch base with Jewish athletes. And a lot of, especially when you get closer to the end of high school, athletes have already been spoken to by college coaches or by their next opportunity. So to introduce a new notion of this is almost like a new category. Like it's kind of like a gap year. It's kind of like a prep year. You're doing something in a foreign country. You're going to Israel. It's not something that other college coaches have heard of necessarily. But now, really running as much as we can to get our word out, to speak to college coaches and to speak to players, to introduce this notion of if you can do something different and it won't conflict with all the other aspirations and plans that you had. Like right now, there's a trend in basketball specifically when size and height is a major factor, but in all sports also to take a year to continue to develop. And the college coaches prefer, that more developed player who's 19 and a little bit more tested and can, has a little bit more experience under his belt. That in many ways that's become preferable over the 17, 18-year-old right out of high school. So to offer that opportunity to come prep, you're essentially prepping in Israel for a year. You're playing in the professional circuit, while also just continuing all of those opportunities that you had to play college basketball or college soccer, just enhancing them, giving you hopefully more opportunities through our connections and through your own development.
So as you take people through this year that they're doing, are most of the athletes that are participating from the United States?
This is interesting. We have athletes from mostly the US. More than half of our team are American, but we also have athletes from three other countries. We have two this coming year is a basketball team, so there's only 12 players. But of those 12 players, 2 are from Canada, 2 are from Australia, 1's from Mexico, and the rest are from the US. So we on the one hand, are bringing American athletes to Israel. On the other hand, you're also having this like incredible international experience where you're connecting with top Jewish athletes from all around the world. And we're seeing that in future years recruiting processes, like in our databases and the kids that we're in touch with for 2025, 2026, and beyond. We have this like amazing pool, both of talent and like these like very diverse different backgrounds.
And so when they come to Israel for that year, what does their living arrangements and schedules look like?
Yeah, so we're giving them like the ultimate sports experience in Israel. Like we are treating them almost like they're a professional athlete. They're coming. Maccabi is an incredible campus. It's called Kfar Maccabiya, like the Maccabi village. On that campus is a major sports facility with 10 tennis courts, 4 pools, indoor basketball court, outdoor basketball courts, workout rooms, like the galore in terms of sports facilities, with a hotel, with Maccabi's headquarters. It's where Maccabi games, the Maccabi games are run out of and headquartered. and guys get to live there on a hotel, like in a hotel on a sports campus that is also a stone's throw away from Tel Aviv. I am not in the best shape of my life, and I can go on a run and get to Tel Aviv in a relatively short amount of time. You're very, very central, and guys are like being set up for this like unbelievable experience where they are, able to see the beach from the roof of our building, have everything they need on campus. It's completely secure, completely safe, despite everything going on in Israel. Like when you're there, then it's much safer than what you imagine by reading headline news, but especially when we're able to actually have our own campus, which is an amazing thing in general, but especially something that's more rare in Israel.
So for those that are interested, right, we're going to put up information here on how they can reach out to you and get more information from the website at yachadmaccabi.org/sport programs, or you can email to Adi at adic@maccabi.org if you're looking for additional information. In terms of the program and the costs, obviously there's a lot that goes into this year. What is the cost for this type of program for somebody, let's just say from the United States?
So for this coming year, the cost is going to be $28,500. It's essentially, meaning if you think about it in terms of prep year, gap year, like that, meaning prep academies, which is becoming a popular notion, will charge anywhere between $30 to $40 to $100,000 to spend a year to prep, to get college looks, to up your game, to develop. And we're offering an opportunity to not do that in a remote location in Florida or in Connecticut or in upstate New York, but to do that in Tel Aviv, which first of all has something completely unique to prep programs, which is this professional upside, where basically the circuit, the professional circuit in Israel has 5 different tiers. The top 4 tiers, players are earning salaries to play sports, and they're no older and not necessarily even better than many American athletes who are playing at the college level, because American athletes don't really have a way in to access those opportunities. So we're playing in the 5th tier. We're giving all of our athletes the ability to continue on in college without losing any college eligibility, but they're also getting exposure and a foot in the door in this circuit to professional opportunities, which they can very easily then continue on with, while also like exposing them to college coaches and to the network of college opportunities that they would have in any other prep program. Like just over the past month, in terms of like college coach, there's Jewish geography and everything, in the Jewish world. So the same way you'll find out the good Jewish restaurants or good places to stay. So there is a Jewish Coaches Association and a network of Jewish coaches who are this amazing little community. And beyond that, mentioned Phil Martelli before, but coaches who are just open to this idea that there are players who are pursuing what they're passionate about, going all in on their athletic careers, but also using sports to, as this platform, to gain other values and to express, their Judaism and their passion for Israel. And we have volunteering components, we're giving back. And coaches have been very receptive to being in touch with us. Division 3 coaches, Division 2 coaches, where a lot of our athletes are practically looking at those opportunities. And, the other day we had John Shire, the head coach of Duke, come on and speak to our team. Next month we have Bruce Pearl, Doug Gottlieb, Mark Gottfried, like a whole list of renowned college coaches who are, Phil Martelli was going, he's one of the most righteous people I've interacted with recently. But for somebody who's not Jewish to be able to look at a program like ours for Jewish athletes, to bring them to Israel, to tap into their Jewish identity, play sports at a high level, for him to say like, wow, that's the most incredible program I've ever heard of. Like for him to like totally get it and to be like really inspired by our players and to tell them how much respect he has for them, like that, that does a lot for our guys and for the perspective on coming. And that network.
Well, you shared a lot of great info with us. I know you said that this program is basically started with basketball. What other sports do you see coming online through this program?
So this coming year for 25, 26, like for this recruiting now for the incoming 12th grade class, we'll have a basketball track for men, a basketball track for women, and a men's soccer track. And then we're also opening a track for non-athletes, Jewish students who are passionate about sports but aren't necessarily players, and giving them opportunities to both be involved with our current teams as well as in turn and get experiences in sports media companies, top tier professional teams in Israel, and get the rest of that gap year experience that we're offering to our basketball players.
So we're looking at sports business experience for those that are interested in a career in sports. This is a way for them to come and break in and have that Jewish experience in Israel, as well as you said, an opportunity to intern and really learn about the sports business world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday, when we were on the Zoom with Coach John Shire, he asked how many of us are 7 feet. So, God willing, we'll have some 7-footers one day. But the obvious silence in the room was, this is a group of Jewish athletes graduating high school. This is not the same pool that he's getting for players at Duke, and we do not have a 7-footer this coming year.
Yeah.
So there's
and you can't coach height, right? You can't coach height.
You cannot coach height. But that's true. That's been true of a lot of our recruiting process. We've had a lot of Jewish students reaching out saying that they are all in on sports. This is their passion, but they're not necessarily looking to play at the next level. They're not talented enough, or they're not interested enough, they're not big enough, whatever the limitation is. But they're this is we are using sports, which is the greatest passion among young American kids and Jewish kids specifically, and giving them opportunities to use that passion to connect to Israel and to connect to Judaism. So
I think it's a great way to do that, and would love to see what we can do as Jewish Sports Network to partner with you and promote those opportunities and get that in front of people. And appreciate you sharing all your story. I know we only have a couple of minutes left here, so I'd like to turn it to the lighter side and kind of close with a couple of fun questions here. So, we'll put up the first one here. What is your favorite Jewish holiday?
Favorite Jewish holiday? I'm born on Purim, so that's always been like the assumed answer. I was born with that answer. The holiday.
Okay. Because you like dressing up, or the food, or what
it's my
makes you like more?
That was always like the easy out, but I love the notion of the happiness behind it. I love the notion of the topsy-turviness of the stories. We think the story is playing out one way, and there's really this destiny for the Jewish people behind the scenes. We think all is doom and gloom, and God has a bigger plan. Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people will survive.
Well, it's always what they talk about, surviving, and one of the big commonalities throughout the Jewish world is food. So what's your favorite Jewish food?
I love gefilte fish. Yeah, that's my gefilte fish.
That's probably an unusual answer.
I know, I was going to say matzah.
I know a lot of people like it, but I don't hear a lot of people saying that's their favorite. So that's an interesting answer.
Right. When I was dating my wife, then I met her grandparents for the first time, and they asked like very casually if I like herring, and I was trying to make conversation and be as least awkward as I could, which is hard for me sometimes. So I like just overcompensated just to make conversation, and I said I love herring. And since then, they've been giving me very large portions of herring for the last 5 years. So I'll go with the other fish now because I'm a little bit sick of the herring.
There we go. All right, and then the last question that we're going to do: who's your favorite Jewish athlete?
I love Sandy Koufax, and the more that I'm learning about him, this is not somebody who I've met or watched when he was, playing, but there's a classic story of him not playing on Yom Kippur, and the more I've learned about him, the more I've I've respected him. And I'll give two examples. One is the rest of the story around Yom Kippur, which is that he missed game one of that World Series so that he would not be playing on Yom Kippur. And he essentially overcompensated. He still ended up pitching 3 games in that 7-game series. I don't remember if it was 2 consecutive games or he pitched on like 2 days rest. It wasn't just that he stood up for his Jewish values, but he completely made it up to his team and ended up being World Series MVP. It's not just like, oh, he chose Judaism over sports. It was that he was able to do both, which is like an amazing notion. And the second one is that I've heard many rumors that he shies away from attention, doesn't want to be the Jewish sports figure. He was almost embarrassed, when he was, eat something that wasn't kosher certification or was, not up to everyone else's standards. Why is he the Jewish? He just wants to be a regular guy. He doesn't want to be the Jewish hero. He doesn't want to be held to stand. He did one thing. That was just something he believed in. He didn't want to make a statement by it. But there's something about that inspires me even more. Like he's trying to shy away from attention, and like it almost makes me like want to run after it more. Like somebody who's just a normal person who's so principled, and not because he's trying to make a statement, and not because he's trying to be a Jewish leader, and not because he's trying to like inspire kids for a generation, but like he just believes in it, and that's what he's going to do. Like there's something about that makes it even more powerful for me. I love Sandy Koufax. He's still alive, and I would love to get to meet him. But
certainly a great role model.
Likely.
Yeah. So Adi, thank you so much for coming on with us today. We appreciate all of your insight and sharing the details about the Maccabi Israel Sports Experience. I think it's an amazing opportunity for those that are interested in basketball and soon soccer and sports business. So thank you for sharing that. And we look forward to partnering with you to see how we can support those efforts.
Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for all
and for all of our viewers and listeners, we appreciate you taking time to join us on the Jewish Sports Podcast. This is your host, Roy Kessel, signing off. Look forward to seeing you at next week's episode.